And then Faith, do you want to go ahead and
we're live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Pillar One Advisory Committee team, and we are joined here by Faith Miller from Head Start, because a lot of my constituents are saying that the private providers are not adequately represented in the Pillar One. So each meeting, we would invite someone from the private sector. Last meeting, we had Chris Push from the Maryland State Child Care Association. And this time we have Faith Miller from Head Start. We would start with introduction. I'd like to welcome everyone, my wonderful committee here, and they could introduce myself. Let me start by saying I'm Ruby Daniels. I'm the Maryland State Family Child Care Association president, and I'm also the chair of the Pillar One Advisory Committee. And my co-chair is Dr. Rania Miller.
Good evening. Dr. Rania Miller. I'm the managing partner of the Consortium of Accomplished Educators. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So next on my screen, I guess I'll just go. Gina is next on my screen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Hoover. I'm the early learning lead teacher with Washington County Public Schools.
Okay, Faith Miller.
Hello, everyone. I'm Faith Miller. I'm the Early Head Start Director at Maryland Family Network and representing the Maryland Head Start Association.
Okay, Jacob.
Hello, I'm Jacob Bennett. I'm a public school teacher here in Harford County. I've done everything from kindergarten up through middle school.
Shannon.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Burrows Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of Baltimore City Head Start, and I'm also representing Maryland Head Start Association.
And Baltimore City, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, our AIB partner here, Rachel.
Hi there, Rachel Amseth. I'm the Operations and Policy Director at the Accountability and Implementation Board.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. So for today's agenda, shall we share the agenda or no? Okay, everyone got the agenda, right? So we would just recap on the last meeting in January 10, where we discussed some of the implementation, some of the recommendation that AIB accepted and some of the challenges that we have. I know Jacob wasn't here and he did say a couple of challenges, but let's start with the Head Start, because I know we want to hear everyone's voices, because the only way that we can be successful in implementing the blueprint is if we're all together, because we're all supportive of each other. So let's start with the Head Start and see what are the challenges and if they can come up with some innovative solution that they can present to the AIB. Either Faith or Shannon.
Well, good evening again. It's hard to jump in right on an agenda and tell you all the challenges. So without having real good context of what's been covered before. So I apologize if things have been covered before. Since the opportunity for the local education authorities to put in their blueprint plans has happened, Faith and I have taken an opportunity to briefly and randomly select some of the plans that are out there in the public universe on the public schools Google or their websites, and have found varying degrees of thought around their implementation, which is exciting because there's some innovation and there's some ideas there from local LEAs around how they're going to partner with private providers, but also a lot of questions and concerns. And the general gist is that LEAs are really struggling with some of the requirements, that they're asking for a lot of waivers, and that the relationships between the LEAs and the private providers is really not clear. The general gist is there's not enough private partners in order to support this initiative. And I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir, and I'm sure we all know that. Head Start and Early Head Start that Faith and I have the joy of administering is a publicly funded organization. Even though private funders may receive grants, it truly is a publicly funded program, and it's actually, I think, probably one of the largest next to a public school setting. And in many of the documents and the proposals, it just Head Start wasn't lifted up and raised up just to really acknowledge and to show that it is really truly a viable partner that can help accelerate the implementation of the ask around the AIB. And it's pretty much being couched within just, they are here. We may not know what they do. They may just be available, but they haven't really tapped into them being as a firm resource. There's also, just in our research, there was some language that surfaced even in the cities. That's where I spend all my time, is in Baltimore City, but even in the city's proposal that caused a little bit of an alarm. And I'm going to try to pull it up here on my computer so I can read it perfectly without messing it up. And of course, I can't find that, but it said something like city schools or, the LEA is unaware of any provision in the Blueprint Act that specifically requires school systems to provide supports or develop the capacity of private providers, nor is there any funding to provided for that purpose. So essentially they're saying, we don't know that we're required to provide any support or develop the capacity of private providers, nor is there any funding to do that. And so as a Head Start representative, as a person that champions the cause of Head Start and Early Head Start, and as a publicly funded program, I don't necessarily need that technical support, but I know the private providers do. And if LEAs do not see it as their role, responsibility, or funded requirement to help private providers, then they do need to rely more on us publicly funded programs that are federally mandated, that are strong and rich in requirements as their resource to be able to implement this. And Faith and I would just like to impart that we do not feel that is happening. That this program is being acknowledged for the resource that it can be in many jurisdictions. And Faith, I just want to pause there and see if I captured it. Okay.
So the other thing also I'm hearing from the other Head Start programs is that some of the Head Start are located in the schools, right? And according to some of the Head Start, if they are located in the schools, correct me if I'm wrong, then they cannot participate in the pre-K. Is that what?
So in some situations, so if it is a operator that has a grant from the federal government that's not a school district, an LEA, they could be a provider. But if that LEA receives direct funding from the federal government to provide Head Start services, then no, at this time they can't qualify. And I think that question is sitting at the state's feet to answer. And that question would have bearing on all of us that receive federal dollars as a publicly funded national program.
Okay.
And that question really needs to be answered so that we can all get clarity on what our role is and can be.
Okay, so that's a very good question for the AIB. Any of my committee have any questions with?
This is actually something I had been thinking about a lot in regards to Head Start. I taught in a school that had Head Start in it, and I'm sure that a lot of principals are looking at those Head Start classrooms, thinking to themselves, that is a room I could fit another pre-K classroom in. And, And I just worry about schools looking at Head Start with a deficit mindset instead of looking at the benefits that come with it, thinking that's taking up space that could be used to help fulfill the infrastructure needs of the pre-K I need. So I think it's a very valid point that we need to make sure that we're thinking about those programs like Head Start that are publicly funded, and making sure they're not squeezed out in the process of the implementation of Pillar 1. So I really appreciate you guys sharing, because this is something that I was thinking about, but hadn't really articulated, but I think you said it really well.
I would say that I believe that is already happening in cases in especially the city where they need space. That takes the priority. We understand that. We understand that that's taking the priority, but it's displacing children and families from an already existing classroom and causing Head Start and providers to have to go out and search for space and license space. And that's expensive, and it takes like 6 months to actually happen in some jurisdictions. And so unfortunately, I think that is a casualty of the implementation in the push to be in compliance with this ramp up.
So I have a question, well, two. The first one is, so just for clarity, in the city, if you have a grant for Head Start, you may not be the public school that has the grant, but you're housed in a school?
Yeah, so in the city in particular, none of the Head Start grantees are city school are with the LEA. We are all they're all under private nonprofits, or in my case, I work for the city of Baltimore. We have a grant. We have the largest Head Start grant. And so, but in other jurisdictions, and I believe it's either PG or Montgomery, and Faith could remind me of which one, directly that LEA directly receives Head Start funding.
Right.
So they would not be eligible.
Montgomery County.
Montgomery. And so they already do Head Start. So that would be like, that would be called supplanting dollars, because they already received that as that grant.
Okay, and my second question is, so when you were looking at the plans for other LEAs, you noticed that they weren't, that they really don't think that they have to partner, or they don't understand where this requirement for support is coming from? Was that a lot of LEAs? Because I looked through a couple, but is that a lot? Are they understanding?
Sorry. So I believe that all of them spoke to the notion of partnership, okay, and using who's in the community and how they do that. So if they rely on their Judy centers to develop those partnerships, or they themselves do it. So I think partnership was very clear in the plan. Where it became concerning is one of the largest jurisdictions of which is city schools says that, and it's written throughout their plan twice I found it in 2 different occasions, is that they do not believe that the blueprint requires them to provide support or supports or develop the capacity of private providers. And I'm not speaking of just Head Start, I'm speaking of family childcare, any private provider, nor is there any funding provided for that purpose. So, that's a red flag, right? Because of course the goal is to raise the capacity. And if they don't see their role as doing that, then it really defeats the purposes. And we're going to have a very bifurcated, disjointed system that that does not achieve results for children. And so I would say, though, in another county I pulled, they really talked about how they wanted to provide support and how they wanted to provide, partnerships, but they realized that they didn't have enough capacity in their jurisdiction. They didn't have enough people to do the work. Right. I would say that most everyone is asking for waivers. And so it would be interesting to take all the jurisdiction plans, and I'm sure somebody is doing that, and just taking it and lining it up and say, they've all asked for a waiver on question 8. And, this is the waiver they're asking for. And some waivers were really explicit. Others were very general. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But
yeah, so Okay, well, thank you so much. So we can move on to the, is there anything else that that's a committee want to talk about, the 70-30 split, or what they're seeing in their counties and stuff? Or we can, go ahead.
Sorry, Ruby, before you move on, I just want to drop a link in the chat.
Okay.
In listening, I thought it might be helpful. I heard you say, Shannon, you were having to go to different LEA web pages to find plans. The AIB does have everyone's plans in one place. We don't have things analyzed quite to the level of, question 8 just yet, or one particular question, but we are working our way through reviewing plans, as is MSDE right now. But I've dropped a link to the 24 LEA plans, and then also there are the state agency plans. So MSDE, MHEC, Consortium, and CTE, just in case those would be helpful to have. And then Shannon and Faith, just on behalf of the AIB, we really appreciate you joining tonight and raising those concerns and your investment in looking at the plans and bringing questions back and figuring out how can we partner, how can we mutually support one another. And so we'll be in touch, and really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And if there's any information we can provide or technical support from the Head Start lens, Faith and I are absolutely available at any time. And so we both really appreciate the opportunity to speak here this evening.
Yes, thank you
Great,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take good
the-
care.
Just something quick that we could, I want to talk to you about. In the past, Head Start was being offered in private programs. I guess in the city with family child care programs and stuff. At some point, would that be an option to go back to that kind of model? So that it's easier for us to participate in the pre-K expansion?
So we would have to really look at that because that's a change in scope for us as Head Start. So that takes a lot of federal approvals.
Mhm.
It's not something that we're opposed to. It's just something that takes a lot of exploration, a lot of approvals, and a lot of compliance on the family child care's end. It's a steep hill, but it's not something that that we're opposed to. I think that the real issue for us now is how do we individually partner with them to do this? How do we come together to make sure that all children and families are served and are served well?
Mhm.
I think that's our main mission.
Yeah, because I know in the past that was implemented in the city and in other places. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to attend. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So we're moving on to the implementation consideration. If you looked at the other question I have is the alternative pathways. Is there any movement to that? This is a question for the AIB. And some of the recommendation that also is tied up with some legislative change.
I did not bring any information tonight about updates. We can get you that.
Okay.
I don't have it at my fingertips to be able to give you.
Oh, okay. The other thing also, I know I send in that link to everyone about the the LEAs and the state agency plan, for each county and stuff. I know it was a little bit of a last minute and a crash course. I'm sorry, everyone. But I did look at Howard County where I live, and it looks like the 70-30 split. They said they were meeting 65-35 of the 70-30 split, but I have no way of knowing how many of those are family, or whether they're Head Start, or whether they're centers, or the 35%, I mean. So but it looks like they said they are meeting that split. The other thing also I'd like to discuss, maybe this might be a good MSDE question at some at some point is the grant application just came out. There's two pockets, the Maryland State grant application, and then also the pre-K expansion grant application. Now, when that came out, MSD made the announcement. All my members were calling me because of the word grant. The grant was kind of thinking that this is something that we could apply for, just like in the previous grant. But it's more complex than that. And the application process itself is made for centers or LEAs, like the Maryland pre-K grant itself is only 60 awardees, and it's highly competitive. And if you look at the budget itself, it is not created for at least family childcare programs or small centers. So it's that itself is a barrier. And I know in our last discussion, it was discussed that MSDE can provide grant application, technical assistance, or help. Is that being enforced, and how is it being enforced? Do we know? I mean, it might be an MSDE question at this point.
Are you speaking about specifically technical support and assistance on those grant applications?
Yes, because
yes. I do believe that I've seen some dates that are available, but I will double check that here in a minute and confirm that.
Okay, because the thing is, last year they had that listening session, or they call it technical assistance, where we would listen to how, what the application process is, what does this mean, what do you need, blah, 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 but then it's like, even with that, it is a barrier because a lot of those things are something that we do not have. Like, we do not have teachers. We cannot afford to provide the same benefits like in the public school, which is also a barrier. So technically, the whole application itself is made for a big center or a public school. So at some point, can they make an application, or they can write in the application process a way for like private providers like family childcare to be able to apply for, for the grant? Because right now our only route is through the Alliance, and that is like a difficult process to do for a lot of us.
Sure, I will be happy to take that back. We do meet with MSDE regularly, so I can bring up the question and the concern and see what I can find out. And then I'm also still looking for information on some of the technical assistance sessions.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So the other thing that we have is the LEAs and the state agency plan and the MSD. I just quickly glanced today, and I looked at the it's a lot of reading, and I'm sorry it was kind of too late for me to send it to everyone, but maybe that's something that we could dissect and look at in our next meeting. And they did also mention something about the outcome measure. I think there's an upcoming meeting, right, Rachel, regarding the outcome measures, the KRAs?
The outcome measures work group that the AIB has convened does meet just about twice a month. And so there is a meeting coming up next week. I do not have the definite topic right in front of me. That I'm not sure that we're back to kindergarten just yet. I know we did just talk about Pillar 5, so we might be jumping back, but we will definitely let you know the topic of next week's meeting.
Yeah, so regarding so that will be good, and then maybe we could dissect that and talk about it some more in our next meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, so is there anything else that the committee would like to talk about in this meeting? What are you seeing in your individual counties?
I just, I see it in our notes, and I just think it's good to bring up again just the importance when we talk about comparable pay for our private providers and our public providers, that, we keep in mind benefits in that comparison, because I feel like we still don't, maybe we do, and I haven't seen it yet, but have hard language for what comparable is. But, if one person's getting paid $60,000 a year and getting a pension and getting, public health care benefits and getting, 12 weeks of, maternal leave, and so on and so forth from the public school system, I mean, all that has to be accounted for in their pay beyond the $60,000 a year. In comparing, that's, $55,000 a year at a private center, but they're not getting the pension, they're not getting the same health benefits, they're not getting, so I think it is worth looking at how do we ensure that when we're looking at comparable pay, we're keeping the total package of benefits in mind in that comparison, because if you don't, what will happen is people will try and get themselves funneled into the public system, and then you'll continually have struggles with staffing in these private centers who have the same credential requirements as the public system. They have to have the same degrees, the same certifications, but they don't have the same structural supports to pay their staff that the public system would have. So I see it in our notes, but I just think it's something that we keep in mind and keep looking at to ensure that there's supports and structures in place. Besides just having the language of comparable pay, that we support in making that happen and happen in a way that is holistic, so that, we're not giving one person $40,000 more a year when you account for benefits for the same job, with the same, credentials. Especially when our kids could be randomly placed in one place or the other. It's the same batch of kids. And I think it's important that those kids, the people who are serving those kids, are treated equally in that sense. So that's something I know I've brought up before, but I see it in our notes, and I just thought I'd bring it up again. But I do think that's something that we look at, that there's some sort of support in place to support, our private entities and public entities, and making sure that we are comparable in pay and benefits.
Yeah.
I agree. I would also like to make sure that we maybe look into the fact that the LEAs don't think they're supposed to, partner. I mean, how are we going to get it done if we don't partner? Even if it's not Head Start, like, where are the partnerships? Who are we partnering with? How are we going to even get to the salaries and the benefits if we don't even have partnerships? Even in the large districts, you can't do it by yourself because the state is telling you it has to be done. So really trying to figure out why there is a disconnect with people not feeling like that is a part of the requirement. I mean, how do you think that private home centers, how are people going to be comparable if they don't team, partner, collaborate with the LEA? So, I mean, that was really concerning for me, because how are we supposed to even begin to implement if we don't know who we're teaming up with or how?
And I just think, for a long time, public schools have been competing with private schools for those students for enrollment, because, you want to have those kids in your school before October, because that helps with funding, and it's important for your school. So this is a new thing in the history of Maryland to be asking for this partnership. And I do think that, maybe something we look at in the future is strategically, how do we support LEAs in building their capacity for that? I know that's something personally in my own county, that's something we've struggled with, is how do we make these connections and And I, it's just a new way of thinking that I think is going to take some work on both ends. I know a lot of the private partners have stresses and worries, and the LEAs have stresses and worries because we're being asked to do something that is very foreign in concept to both sides.
I agree. And I also think that as pillar one, since this is the foundation, we also have to think about the teacher shortage. If teachers aren't teaching in public, they're not teaching private, they're not, teaching. So maybe we can message that collaboration in the spirit of like, we don't have to fight over people because we don't have a lot of people to fight over. So how can we make this work, for everybody? How can we all make this work so that we can implement effectively and also get our shortages to where we can meet the needs of our parents and families?
Raina and Jacob, you both bring up some really great points. I just want to chime in quickly. I think, Raina, you might have been a plant for me to bring an update from the AIB. We are very interested in all of the advisory members. If you have an opportunity to read any of the LEA plans and want to provide feedback to us on what you see, we would really appreciate that. So I think I sent an email last week just letting you know that we would love that feedback in whatever format, whatever's easiest for you. If sending me an email is the easiest, that's great. Or if you as a team want to compile documentation, that's great. We do ask that you don't work on a plan if you are an employee of the district, just that we try to keep a conflict of interest out of there. But if the entire group would like to divide them up or split out who reads what, that would be great. And I think especially in light, Raina, of your comment about the Head Start noticing the folks noticing some of the maybe confusion about partnerships or lack of partnerships or maybe need of TA, which is another thing that I would love your input on as well. I am working on building out the technical assistance plan for the implementation of the blueprint. And so if you think of things as you come across them and say, this would be a really great TA session or TA is clearly needed here, please let me know. We are seeking that now, but always as we go on to implement. And Jacob, you're right. It's not just pillar one that's a rethinking of things, right? It's the entire blueprint. We're asking people to approach education from a different way, to rethink what we've always done. And that's tricky. We know what we've always done and we don't know what we haven't done. So we do need to help folks understand the intent, the resources, and the shifts that are needed.
And I know I can only speak for Washington County, for what we're doing here, but we are, we've been really trying to kind of bridge that gap between the public and the private because we are universal here. So, we offer pre-K in every elementary school and 2 high schools. And so we have a lot of pre-K seats. And so, my coordinator and I have really been trying to reach out to different child care centers. And we did last year, we did some PD on a Saturday for our child care providers, even if they weren't applying for the grants, just to come in and, kind of partner with us. We try to go to a lot of community events. We were just at Healthy Kids Day at the Y, and I met a private provider and she's like, let's collaborate. Because she's only a half-day program. It's not like, but like she wants to learn about what we're doing in the public setting and vice versa. So, we've really been trying to, but like you guys said, it is different. We have to get past they're taking our kids or you're taking our kids or you're taking our teachers or this or that. And we all have to work together because when you're thinking about the KRA and kindergarten readiness, it's all that stuff that happens before kindergarten. So it doesn't matter if they're in the public school, the private setting, a child care center, a home child care, mom's house. Like we have to figure out how to bridge that gap to make sure that all of our students are kindergarten ready, no matter where they are prior to coming to kindergarten. So, we've been working really hard at that here, but, I'm interested to I've perused some of the other LEAs, implementation plans, but I'd really like to dive in further and just kind of see what others are doing as well.
Can you talk some more about how your district uses 2 high schools to host pre-K? Because that's something that I've been talking about and very interested in, but I'd love to hear how you guys are doing that.
Sure, I'll do my best. So we actually have two of our high schools that have the teacher academies in them. So they have the high school, they have a high school teacher, and then our pre-K teacher and a pre-K para. And so, you know, the pre-K teacher is obviously responsible for the pre-K teaching, but those Teacher Academy of Maryland TAM kids come in and get to teach lessons and get to work with the pre-Kers. And we really have seen great things from it. And those two high schools that we have, one had previously up until this year had like a childcare in it, and then we flipped it over to make it the TAM Academy and the pre-K, and it's really, there's so many great benefits to it.
I think that's brilliant. It's like a mini model school of sorts.
Awesome.
It supports the TAM initiative, so it's a part of career pathways and a career ladder.
Grow your own, and
yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the future, and especially as we're all looking for space to put these pre-K classrooms, that's a great use of your high school space. Now, do those pre-K students, do they get to go to specials like with the high school music teacher and stuff? Or?
Well, so yes, so one of our schools, the elementary school comes up and does the encore classes. Another one, the high school encore teachers do it. So it just depends on, you know, how schedules work and stuff like that. One of our programs is in our technical high school, so that's kind of cool too. You know, because they get to, you know, learn about different things and stuff like that. But yeah, they're both great programs, and we see great things both from the TAM students and, you know, the pre-K kids. And I actually just called a parent the other day about something, and she was like, I just love that program, it's so great. So it's really cool to hear.
I'm just so excited to hear that you guys are doing that, because I just thought that was like a hypothetical idea, but to hear that that's in practice somewhere, that's awesome.
Yes, yeah, we have two. It's great.
That just warmed my heart to hear about like the high school teachers teaching the little guys music and art. Like that's got to be a day brightener for them to, instead of having teenagers.
I think they were nervous at first.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, but I mean, our one high school, they had got to do some basic French last year, and just like different things. So it's really cool.
That is a really neat, like unintended outcome. You know, what a neat opportunity. It reminded me that I did want to share one other creative approach that we've seen and that we shared at one of our meetings, and that was Prince George's County has a long-standing agreement where they put a Prince George's County teacher in a private school. So the school system puts the teacher there and provides the teacher training, and then the center is responsible for all of the, you know, the building compliance, all of the making sure that the space is approvable and usable for childcare. But it's a great partnership between the privates and the publics, you know, to be able to, when publics are out of space, and when privates have a shortage of teachers, if it's that teacher, then it kind of addresses the salary and benefits. It addresses a couple of things. So I knew that was an aha for several of the school systems thinking about how they might be able to model something like that.
That is great. I mean, that would be nice if we can expand that to other counties as well. I just have a question, Gina, about the UPK. Are there any family childcare programs that are part of this UPK?
Well, so our school district is universal pre-K. We actually only have, well, this year we have 3 private providers, I think, that are like, you know, have seats available. But I think next year, I've heard so far that only one is applying for the grant, but that could change because like you said, the grant just came out. So, but yeah, so our, you know, we have more seats in our public schools than our private providers, obviously.
Now, would the Washington County consider partnering with the grant application and making the private providers a sub-grantee? Because the grant application itself is complex and it's unreachable for a lot of us.
That is not something that I know. I don't know. I can certainly find that out. I don't want to answer one way or the other because I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
That's above me, but
I just want to put a bug in everybody's
I
ear
can
so
certainly
they can
certainly
start
ask
thinking
about
of
that.
innovative solution, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely willing to ask, and find that information out for sure.
Okay, I know it's something about the KRA, but it kind of slipped my mind now. Because I was reading about the how the Howard County's long implementation on okay. So Howard County, we have some kind of like partnership with the school where we have transition to kindergarten. That was when I was the president of the local Howard County Association. And I know we did establish that partnership. And also there were some kind of learning sessions that we have with the kindergarten teacher as well. So they were actually teaching us how to teach the children, get them ready for kindergarten and what they're looking for, and how to implement certain, early learning assessment. Would this be something that we can do in other counties so we can better prepare the children going to kindergarten and also getting their getting them ready for for school. Are you seeing that in other counties?
So we partner, like I said, we've done, some professional development with child care centers. Our one child care center that is on the, that has the grant, we go out monthly and do PD with their pre-K teacher there. And they actually have implemented using our same like report card checklist type thing. They have ours that is theirs now. So they use the same one. So we try to do a lot of work with that just because, like I said, it's, no matter where they are prior to kindergarten, we want them all to be ready. So we're doing our best to try to, try to get everybody on the same page, even if, different curriculums are used, things like that. We try to talk about the things that, we're big in the science of reading here and stuff like that. So we try to, teach about that and things that can be used no matter what curriculum program or materials you're using in your classrooms.
No, is the curriculum, could the curriculum be shared with the private provider so that way there's a smooth transition to kindergarten? If for all kind of at least be on the same page, or
so I know a lot of them already use certain things like some of them use the MSDE ones, Children Study Our World, I think is what it is.
oh yeah,
so I know a lot of them have already had different things in place. So we just try to, help with like the general things that can fit with any, no matter what curriculum program you're using. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they could be on the same page as what we use or what, or vice versa.
Ideally, I think that would be nice. So that way there's like a seamless transition to kindergarten and they're on the same page, as opposed to we're all in different places and like my program, they're learning something, and then in the public school, they're learning something else. It would be easier if we're all in the same page. So that way, when it's time for assessment, they would know what they were, the skills that they should learn, or that the children can reach the benchmark that's needed in order
That's,
to.
I think, why they found it valuable to kind of see our report card. I hesitate to call it a report. It's more, it's a checklist, but that's why I think that they were so on board with seeing what we were using in the school district so that they could be looking for those same things in their private provider programs, just to make sure that the kids were kindergarten ready by the end of that.
Yeah.
So I think, Ruby, we are at the AIB are reviewing every plan, and going through it, a couple different levels of review. There, I cannot speak to which county I read what in right now. It is all jumbled inside my head, but we definitely did see many counties that invite their private provider partners to be involved in discussion of new curriculums and new materials, and that if they use the same materials, they're invited to partake in the professional development around those materials. So I think we are seeing that across many of the districts, but that makes me wonder, and also your conversation prior to this, if any of you are able to review plans and to give us some feedback, it sounds like it could be really helpful to have a list of promising practices. What are things that we're seeing people do that are innovative and that are helping achieve the goals and overcome some of the barriers? So that might be a lens as you're looking at plans to record some of those, and maybe we could create a little document to be able to share.
That's a very good homework for us. So what we could do is, since there could be a conflict of interest if we're commenting on the implementation plan in our counties, we can actually switch counties. We could do that amongst ourselves, and then that way we could look at it. Of course, we can look at our counties first, and then maybe comment in another counties implementation and stuff, so that way it's not a conflict. That's what you said, Rachel, right? It's
Yes,
best if
that
we
was
review.
the recommendation, that yes, if you're an employee of the school system, that you pick a different school systems plan to read.
Okay.
Maybe Ruby, you could make like a sign up genius or something and send it out, and then we all just pick, whatever the amount of districts there is, divided by the number of us. We each agree to just pick that many, and then by the end of that, we have all of them covered.
Yeah, because we do have 24.
Yeah.
So, and there's how many of us? I think there's 6.
Yeah, so
each
that
one
would
can-
be 4 each.
4 each. Yeah.
So we each just go onto the Sign Up Genius and click on 4 of them, and then by that time they're all covered.
Okay.
I can tell you, as a reader of plans, Pillar 1 is delightful because it is a little shorter than some of the other plans. They do go pretty quick as you're going through them. And if you want, I can also, for another pillar, I did create a sign up that just has the list of the counties and a column for you to put your name if you would like that. It's in a Google Doc in one of their folders. I could just make a copy and put it in your folder as well and send the link over.
Yeah, and then I could just create the Google form, and then we could take it from there. We can even have a shared drive where I can create each of the topics, and then we that would be a good way to share it, and then it will generate the report or something. So
Sure.
that way it's easier.
We do have a shared drive created for you in a Google Drive. I can send you that link as well. I'll send an email to everybody right after we finish up tonight.
Okay. So I could put the form in there.
Yeah.
For everyone to access. And so we have about 9 more minutes. Is there anything else that we need? Oh, I forgot about the survey. That was on my list. So at the last meeting, we talked about surveying past and participants and why providers opt to participate, or some of them want to participate. So I did create like a survey, and I had nearly 100 people answer the survey. This is just the beginning. There's a Bainham Foundation and Alliance, and also MSDE has funded us to look at the barriers to the pre-K participation for family childcare that I'm part of. So we're gonna look at that, and then maybe get back to the committee, and as I get more information about what are the barriers and stuff. Looking roughly at the survey that I just sent out, a lot of the providers are saying one of the barriers is they don't have a bachelor's. So that's something that we have to look at. We're kind of trying to help a lot of our foreign transcript evaluated, so that way most of our providers at foreign transcript can pursue their education further. The other barrier also that I saw just briefly when I'm glancing at the survey result is that the Maryland Excels level is also another. A lot of the providers have to at least get to a 3. So more to come as I get more information that I can share with the committee at our next meeting. So is there anything else that we need to discuss? So there's nothing else. I think we have 5 more minutes. Is there anything that you want to bring up from last meeting, or what we want to discuss at the future meetings? Or our future meeting, we're going to discuss the look at the LEA's plan. Please split up the 4. Each one will get 4, and then we can bring it back to the AIB. The questions that we want Rachel to address would be the grant application, technical assistance or help, or if they can at least create a drop down in the grant application, right, for family childcare programs, because a lot of the questions in the grant application itself does not apply to family childcare programs. So if they can, like in any application, the drop down, and then it would take you to a different requirements, that would be ideal. And what else did I? And looking at the wording that the Head Start brought up, right? That the partnership with the LEAs and things. And anything else that I miss, or wrapping up on what was discussed? Anything else? Jacob, Gina, Rainier?
No, I mean, I'll just continue to say I think we need to strengthen that language and understanding of what it means for pay to be comparable. So people have a clear pathway, as people build their budgets towards the future, so that they can understand what they need to be preparing their staff for in the future. And, all that. I think that's important for these private partners that agree to sign on to be a part of this. So that, again, we're setting everyone up for success. But I think that's one of the biggest things. And also continuing to have that conversation of how are we going to support people to have the time institutionally to get bachelor's degrees and associate's degrees. Because if you want to get people to get those certifications, you got to give them time. And to give them time means you have to have them leave the workplace for a period of time, which means you got to have someone cover the workplace for a period of time, so it's a complicated, especially with a timetable, it's very complicated. So I think those are 2 things I just think we need to continue to talk about and continue to look at and figure out how to support people in that, because I think those are 2 barriers to getting people to support.
That's a very good point. Exactly. That's a very good point, Jacob. And the first one that you said, the comparable salary and benefits as a public school, is definitely a big barrier for family childcare programs, because they make more than we do. So how can we afford to pay salary that, we pay much, we earn much less than they do. So that is definitely a barrier that needs to be addressed. Anything else, Gina or Rainier? No? Okay, so we're towards the end. We're 3 minutes short of our meeting. And if there's nothing else, then I will send out the Google form in the drive to kind of, so that way we can review some of the LEA's implementation for our next meeting. And our next meeting should be July, during the summer months, right? July, August, September. Is that correct, Rachel?
As long as we're quarterly, yep, we're great. No mandate for which month, but we do aim to have each of the advisory committees meet quarterly.
Okay, so we'll just send again, a doodle poll to see what's best for everyone in those 3 months. And we'll see if we can invite some more private providers in the conversation.
Do you think that we would need to meet sooner than that? Just because if we're going to, I mean, I don't know, I know schedules are crazy, but if we're going to be looking at the LEA's implementation plans, is it more beneficial to maybe even meet for, you know, a little bit sooner than that, just to kind of say, these are the kind of things that we read and, you know, and things like that? Or do you think July is still okay?
Rachel?
So it's really up to you. Some of the advisory committees are meeting monthly, and some, you know, it really is up to your schedules and when you would like to meet. Our only goal or request was that it was quarterly. So given some of the things happening in summer schedules, maybe pushing up a little bit would make sense, but totally up to you.
Personally, speaking as a public school teacher who's finishing out the school year, if it would be, I would prefer to wait until the school year's over to meet again. So like late June, early July, I think would be good. That would give me time to finish the school year and then devote some time to doing the work of reading through these plans and doing it well. But I agree, I don't want to wait till September to meet. But I don't, you know, I also don't want to meet in the next month and then, you know, not have the time because I'm finishing out the school year to really do the work I need to do before our next meeting.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, let's plan on, I think a good month would be sometime in July when people are not on vacation, or even when we're on vacation, we can Zoom, right? So let's plan on that, and hopefully we'll you know, we'll have the best end of the year events, right? As we wind down and get our kids off ready for the next year.
Ruby, Jacob's thought made me think of one other thought. You
Mhm.
don't need to read all the plans before you would give us some feedback. So if you happen to read one next week or, you know, in 2 weeks or whatever, you could just send things that you see as you see them. We are aiming to make sure that all LEAs receive feedback and we get those plans revised and ready for approval by July 1 would be the best hope. So if you do happen to see things that you feel like we should really be paying attention to, or that you want to celebrate or alert us to, that would be helpful just ongoing. But I know your plates are very full with the end of the year. May is always a busy month.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll hope to see you in July.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.